So with that, welcome all of you. And with that, we'll go around and do self-introductions right quick. And with that, I'm Norman Wright, Chair. Next.
Wendy Pratt with the Commission.
Eric Olson with the Commission.
Morning. Morning, Wendy. Next.
Shane Bell from the Attorney General's Office.
Thank you, Shane.
And
Next.
Joan Clunan with the Ada Soil and Water Conservation District.
Thank you, Joan.
Benjamin
Next.
Kelly with IASCD.
Oh, Kelly. Oh, Kelly. Next.
Eileen Rowan with the Commission.
Lane. Next.
Justin Diaz with the Commission.
Okay. Who do we have in the room?
Crystal Rosen with the Commission.
Brenda Charles with the Commission.
Ellen Tress with the Commission.
David Esquena, Elmore Soil and Water Conservation District.
Welcome.
Loretta Strickland with the Commission.
Joe Peterson with the Commission.
Rachel Misnick with the Commission.
Okay.
That's all for the room here, Commissioner.
Okay. Who else was on the phone that on the Zoom that's not being introduced?
Amy
Cassie
Miller
Olson with the
NRCS.
Boundary Soil Conservation District.
Jeanette
Welcome.
Mendenhall with, Jeanette Mendenhall with the Lewis Soil Conservation District.
Welcome.
Julie Burkhart, Adams Soil and Water Conservation District.
Welcome, Judy. Next.
Amy Miller NRCS.
Amy. Art, nice seeing you. Next.
Kylie Damon with Menowa Soil and Water Conservation District.
Nice, Kylie. Next.
Bill Bitzenberg, Twin Falls Soil and Water Conservation District.
Thanks, Bill. Next. Okay. Well, I assume other people probably join us later. So with that, let's move into our partner reports. Does IDEA have anybody on that would like to talk about IDEA for a minute? Well, I guess that's a no-go. How about from ISCD? Is that up to you, Benjamin, or someone else gonna take the ball?
Benjamin, you're on mute.
That's the best thing that's happened to Benjamin for quite a while.
Yeah, it was a good report until you said that.
Yeah, quick.
So yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Definitely want to thank Delwyn for coming to our board meeting last week, and having a lot of different conversations with board members too. I think that went a long way as well, just to kind of everybody knows Delwyn and Delwyn knows everybody. So but some good conversations about where some possibilities are, and our board met and ended up talking a lot about WACPA and just trying to gauge where the state government's going to go. And obviously we know that there's going to be some federal funding for a lot of different things, and so anyways, wanted to see where you guys were at, and I think Dylan's going to report on some things later on, but I think those discussions were really good, based off of what transpired in 2017 when we were all looking, both the commission and the association were looking to see if we could get that refunded, that program refunded. We've talked a lot about, what's in statute for Waukpa. And then obviously you guys know that the rules were cut because of the Red Tape Reduction Act, and how that would work if there was some funding for Waukpa. But you know, with the legislature in town this week, we were able to talk to a few legislators and kind of gauge their interest as well. And I think the big thing for water quality, water quantity, all those different kind of things is they want to get these dollars on the ground where they're going to be most helpful. And man, Waukpa is a great place to do that. And so, you know, I think if it hasn't officially been asked, then I think our board would definitely be on the path of wanting to work with the commission and Nrcs and really make Waukpa one of the most viable opportunities. You know, we've talked a lot about DEQ BMP program. There's some flaws there that everybody agrees. And I think one of those flaws is the bags only meet, or the bag only meets once a year, and some different things like that. And there's been some, you know, as the programs went along, there's been some difficult decisions made by the bags where, you know, there might be a better opportunity through Waukpa. And so what that funding would look like, you know, what DEQ and their director Jess would want to do with BMPs through DEQ. You know, as far as we've come with BMPs through DEQ, I have not heard anybody from DEQ really convey that they want to just grow that program exponentially. It might be at the place where, you know, they can handle what the funding that they're getting currently and maybe a little extra funding, but this might be the great opportunity for, once again, for, you know, the Commission Association and Nrcs to really open up some opportunity for districts, and districts might, you know, especially if they have those kind of projects in their district, they might be able to ramp up pretty quickly in specific areas, but hopefully throughout the state. So that was kind of my what came from last week and what came from a few conversations with legislators this week. And once again, depending on how what you want to talk about now or what Delwyn reports later on, you know, if that's where the commission wants to go to, it would be great to kind of release the hounds, and because I'd like to bring Delwyn along for some of those conversations and in some of those meetings. We've been talking with Paul Arrington of the Idaho Water Users and some different people like that. Want to speak with the governor's office hopefully next week about it as well, and would love to have Delwyn's there as well. So
Hey, Benjamin, on that, you know, I know that we want to discuss it some more, especially in the administrator's report, I believe is where he's got it stuck. Are you going to be around for that or what?
I absolutely can be. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're at such a good, I mean, timing will be short because they're going to come to the legislature in January, obviously, but if we get the right people involved, this thing might get legs pretty quickly. And you know, I think it would be great to continue to have the commission to be able to you know, reach out and you know, continue the list that we had 2017 about unmet needs or shovel ready projects. I forget exactly how we labeled it, but we would want to send that out to districts from our side too, saying, hey, yeah, what kind of projects do you have? And you know, when I've talked to Curtis a little bit about water quality, I think he probably even has more maneuverability on the side of what water quality truly is and how it helps. I mean, I think from NRCS's side, you know, cover crops have to do with water quality for a number of reasons. And it's not just the actual, you know, stream bank restoration project. I mean, they can really help out too. So yeah, I'm willing to go wherever you want to go, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. You know, one thing that I think that we fail to remember people about is if DEQ gets the money, they're a regulatory agency. This state wants to be independent, wants to voluntary, but they turn around and give money to DEQ, a regulatory agent. I think we really, really need to harp on the idea that we are a voluntary. The school conservation districts are voluntary type of projects. And I think that can be a real resonant with the legislature.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Mr. Chairman. That's probably the best avenue to go in order to change minds and get the funding directed through us.
Okay, well, enough harping on that. I agree with you, Benjamin. We need more discussions on this, and we're going to have some today. And I think it's a positive step forward for all of us. I know Amy's on here from NRCS. I assume that you're representing Curtis. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Right now, Curtis is on a detail, so I'm the acting state conservationist till middle of February. So I'm here
Good.
to help out, and I still talk with him, so.
You do? Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Do you have anything you'd like to enlighten us on?
COVID's always a big issue that's on everyone's mind, and we're still awaiting the guidance for the partners and what that means. They're still working through our employees' requirements, and so just an update for that. I know a lot of folks have been reaching out to our field offices, and we still are awaiting our guidance. So when it comes out, it'll come out for all of us, and we're just waiting. And I know folks have been patient, and we really appreciate it and value our partners and trying to get folks in the offices, but we're still waiting the COVID updated guidance for our partners. Other than that, we're working through a lot of projects, which you all know, and a lot of conversations are being had, like with the water quality initiatives and those kinds of things moving forward. So I'm glad the walk paw is something you guys are looking at, something we continue to work with you all and want to, get work on the ground.
Do you know when Curtis is going to be back?
Yes, February 10th.
Okay. Tom, we're holding his feet to the fire on that one, okay?
I will. Yeah, no, he will be back. We have, because that's when my detail ends too, and I'll go back to my position under him. So, yep, he'll be back February.
Okay. Tell him hello for us, would you please?
Yes, sir.
Are there other partners or would be appropriate this time to talk about anything particular? Bring up to our attention? Okay, hearing none. Our next item of business is agenda review. I don't believe there's anything that we need to change or talk about this time. Is there, Delwyn?
No, sir.
Okay, well, the main reason that I know many of you are here, and that is for our listing session. And it's your opportunity to talk to us and us to understand where you're coming from and hopefully get on the same page. So with that, we'd be more than happy to have someone kick this off and make a comment or ask a question. So would somebody like to start off there? The floor is yours. As you come on, please introduce yourself and so we know who's asking the question, please. Come on now, somebody can't be bashful. I'm sitting here looking at Bill Bitzenberg from Twin Falls here and smiling at me. And surely he's got a question on his mind.
Well, I really don't have any gripes. You know, I am really happy to see the commission and the association kind of amended fences and working together. That makes me really happy. I just I hadn't liked how things had been, and it seems like, and I'll give Delwin a lot of credit. He's well, I'm so happy to see Delwin doing what he's doing, because it's going to really help things. He works so well with everybody, and I'm just glad to see, you know, the association and the commission just kind of, we can't get anything done unless we, you know, walk together kind of hand in hand and do this thing. And I'm real pleased with that. So that's really all I have to comment on right now.
Well, thank you very much. And I couldn't agree more with your conversation there. We had a chat come in from Benawag County talking about an engineer position. Delvin, can you tell us anything that's going on there, or is Bill on?
It doesn't look like Bill is on, Chairman. What I can tell you is that we have reopened that announcement.
Will be next week.
It will be open next week. We've given it a little rest and hoping that the labor market situation would square up a little bit for us. And so we'll find out starting next week. So that's where we're at there. That position is still open, and Bill is still covering the entire state with the help of some contract engineering that we're having to use down in Division 5.
Okay. Now I'll throw out something to all the people that are listening. If you know of someone that you think might be interested in a position or could help us out, please have them give us a call if they need to, or look online. Word of mouth sometimes is the best advertising we can get, and we need your help on this one for sure. Okay. Sure. Anybody else want to visit?
Yeah, this is Art Beal with the Spofford Soil Conservation District. I was wondering how is the loan program getting pretty good use? We don't hear much about it except that you advertise it once in a while. Is it getting pretty good use?
I didn't quite catch his question. Did someone else do a better job than me?
Is your loan program getting a pretty good use?
The loan pro?
Yeah.
Art, I'm not hearing you either. Are you asking about the loan program?
Yes, yes.
And if it's getting much use?
Yes.
No, I'll throw in right quick. As all of you, I would hope, know, recently we drastically lowered our interest rates. Now, first off is, of course, everybody knows interest rates are at an all-time low. I don't know what they're doing today with what's going on, but they're an all-time low. And so we lowered our interest rates, trying to get the money out. And since we've done that, I would say we've had more loan interest, and we've also had 2 or 3 confirmed new loans. And I'm going to throw this out, we're talking interest rates of 1%, 1.5%. So it's pretty interesting. We've got a loan today that is under that category. And so we're hoping that we generate a lot of interest. Delwin, would you want to add to that, or is Terry Hobelheimer?
There's someone on the line.
Is he?
Chairman, I believe that Terry Hobelheimer, our loan officer, may be on the line. Terry, is that you on the telephone line?
It is, Delwin.
Yeah.
Chairman Wright, if I might add just a few comments.
Yeah,
the loan activity is definitely has picked up. Of course, we're looking at that one loan, as you mentioned earlier today, as far as the commission make a decision. And then I've got several in the pipeline in various levels, and the inquiries are coming in. So I guess we'll find out after the next spring rush, but definitely have some loans in the works. So that 1% interest has definitely caught people's attention. So
Thank you, Terry.
Hope that answers your question, Art.
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
one of them.
Well, go for another one, Art. You got the floor.
On the 319D list, how are we meeting the challenge there?
319. Meeting the challenge on 319.
Yes.
Can you answer that, Delvin? I'm probably not the best one there.
Art, Chairman, let me ask Art to clarify on the 319 program. There are a number of districts, as you know, that are involved with submitting proposals to DEQ, and we are providing the technical assistance that is requested of us by districts to help get those projects implemented. But of course, DEQ would have to respond to whether or not the 319 program here in Idaho is meeting the objectives that EPA has set forth for the program.
But
Does that help?
Is the commission meeting their request for help?
Is the commission meeting their requests for help?
Yes, I think looking at this year, for example, we're continuing to be able to provide, if not all of the hours requested by districts for specific 319 or other technical assistance requiring projects, we have been able to provide at least some of the hours they've requested. And I think Loretta is now in charge of that program. I'll just kind of slide over here, and maybe Loretta could add something to that.
Julie has something that she wants to say too. She has her hand up, just FYI.
Julie, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Julie Burkhart, Adams Conservation District. In answer to Art's question, I think, first I want to just say that you may or may not be aware that I am the livestock representative on the Southwest Idaho BAG right now. And the BAG is currently looking for an agriculture representative. They just sent out a notice on that one recently. So we need another person to represent the BAG if you know anybody. I would say that just in the last year or so, it's probably been, people have had their needs met, but I think we're poised to really go out and get a bunch of new projects. And I'm really concerned that we aren't going to have the technical assistance that we need. This year was probably pretty good, and with COVID and all of that, those things probably, maybe to some degree suppress the need. But I think going forward, there's just going to be so much need, and really having NRCS be a partner again would be so helpful. I know they've struggled too with finding engineers and so forth, but to be told that we have a huge project in the Little Salmon watershed that's potentially going on, and with a huge possibility of assisting a lot of landowners up there with various work, to be told by NRCS that we're just not high enough priority, that's pretty disappointing, to not even have that as a possibility for one of our partners to be helping out on that. So that's it.
Thanks, Julie. Did that get your question answered, Art?
I know where to go from here.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions? Joan, you've been pretty quiet. You surely have something to say.
Oh, I'm just listening today, although somewhere along the way, I want to talk, I would like to talk to you and Delwyn about this concern about the BMPs and all of that going through DEQ. BMPs are indeed non-regulatory, but for a long time I was involved with DEQ. I was on their board for 12 years and involved in writing regulations. And I was also involved with writing the groundwater statute and the groundwater plan. In both regulations and the groundwater plan, there are places where BMPs are required by DEQ rule or statute. And in the groundwater plan, there's a place that says if the BMPs are not successful, they need the water discharges from agriculture need to be regulated. So I think that as much as we want to say it's not regulated, it is in a sense, and there's good reason for DEQ to be involved, just like with the 319 project, DEQ and EPA are involved. So I think one of the arguments or whatever, talking to the legislature to say that we want to be unregulated and continue to be unregulated, we need to say that there is a threat if we don't do BMPs and if we don't have the funding to implement BMPs, we really could be regulated. I don't know, does that make sense to you? It's sort of a delicate thing. BMPs are not regulated, but at the same time, they are. So there's a certain logic to DEQ having some control. As much as I want to say, yeah, that should all come to us, there's always that underlying threat of regulation if we don't get these funded and if we don't do it. So
I think our attitude, John, would be is we'd like to really see the producers do it voluntarily first. But
absolutely,
as we well know, no matter how much we push, how much anybody pushes, some people are going to tell you no at no uncertain terms. And sometimes those people need to be prodded. And I think that's where DEQ's part of it has to come in, period.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, anytime you want to get me involved in talking about that and how we can it's a fine line in how we manage doing the BMPs. But I think again, if we're going to the legislature looking for more support for funding BMPs, if we want to stay on, we have to say it is in order to stay unregulated, we need to be able to offer these unregulated programs.
Very nicely said, Joan. If we want to stay that way,
that's true.
We need to voluntarily do it. If we don't, then I guess it won't happen, will it?
Right.
Judy, do you have something?
You know, one of the things, yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that kind of came up, the district has been getting involved with the Little Salmon Watershed Collaborative. There's a lot of different stakeholders and landowners involved in that. And one of the things that came out recently was that we did the Little Salmon TMDL quite a few years ago, and also the Ag Implementation Plan. And nothing happened. And that was right about the time when the WACPA funding went away and things like that. And so I think there was an expectation there that, okay, we did all this WAG and we had the TMDL and the Ag Implementation Plan, and then nothing happened. There were no projects offered, or there was nothing programmatic that came after that. And I really think that the loss of WACPA was one of the reasons for that. And there's a lot of folks that are very concerned about the regulatory part of it. I don't know, it's one of those things, on the one hand, we're worried about regulation, but on the other hand, we're not willing to go out and do the things it takes to fix things so that we're not regulated. The old catch-22 there.
Yep, and lots got to do with money, and we need to find some sources, and WACPA could definitely be a source for that. Okay, other comments, questions, theories? Come on, you guys aren't that bashful. And ladies, I said guys, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that term. We have a lot of wonderful ladies on soil conservation district boards.
Well, if you want something done, who's going to do it?
Oh, no comments about that one, Julie. I'll be in trouble if I do.
Chairman?
Yes.
While we're waiting for somebody else to get warmed up, I'll just share with you, I got an email from Butte, and the Butte Soil and Water Conservation District, and they indicated that there would probably not be anybody able to call in, but they wanted to share these remarks. So I'll read this from Butte. Hello, I'm not sure if any of our board will be able to make it to the listing session, as it is the same day as our board meeting. One thing I would like to say is how much we appreciate Rob setting up Zoom meetings for us, and for the commission allowing us to use their Zoom account for our board meetings. I know this is extra hassle for Rob, but it sure makes our meetings run smoothly, and we can have NRCS in attendance because of their COVID restrictions. Thank you, Stephanie Barnes, Administrative Assistant from Butte Soil and Water Conservation District.
Okay, well, Rob Sharpneck, somebody said thank you for you, so we appreciate that. And if other districts are interested in helping us set up their Zoom, give their local representative a jingle, and I'm sure that can be done. I'm not a big fan of Zoom, but under the circumstances and going forward, there's still probably a use for it, because even though we like to meet in person, and that's by far, I think, the best way to do things, but sometimes people just can't be there, and Zoom is a good second alternative.
For sure.
Okay, does someone else like to say something? We haven't heard anything much from North Idaho. I'm sure they're still around and vocal, aren't they?
Chairman?
Have anything?
Chairman, being as our North Idaho participants don't have their cameras on, in case any of them are trying to report, you're also muted. So if you have something, you want to jump in and make some comments or remarks or ask some questions, make sure you unmute.
They can use the chat as well if their microphones aren't working for any reason, and we'll be happy to read their statements off for the record.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Delwyn a question?
Go right ahead.
Delwyn, I was wondering what the status is on hiring technicians and/or engineers. Is that ongoing or what?
It is. Our announcement for the engineer position goes live again early next week. And we have a plan in place to replace there in your division, in your area, Julie, to replace Loretta, or at least to hire somebody to fill her seat. And we're looking at having somebody on board for that before the field season starts, fairly early in the new calendar year. But we kind of put that on hold for a while, being as things are wrapping up, other than the work that Bill's doing there in Division 3. So and otherwise, staff-wise, Rob Sharpnack, Water Quality Resource Con from Shoshone, has taken over. He's now the acting CREP manager. So we're shuffling around. Joe is jumping in and helping with one of those districts. Carolyn and Dustin also have taken on additional districts for the interim, as long as Rob is acting.
Hey, Delvin, you know, I know that we've talked in our commission meetings about the problems we've had hiring an engineer. Would you like to back up just a little bit? Because, you know, it's a big concern for lots of districts. Could you back up a little bit and just tell them what's happened and why we're still haven't filled the position yet?
Yeah, Chairman, be happy to add what I can to that. We've advertised that. Crystal, how many weeks have we advertised those positions, or that position?
If we add together the 3 times in the past that we have listed the engineer position, Mr. Chair, and districts, we have advertised that position for a total of 10 weeks, if memory serves. Each time we either get little to no response. What responses we do get are not qualified, meaning they don't meet the minimum qualifications for that job description that we're required to meet by the state, or something has happened and it just hasn't worked out for one reason or the next. I know that Bill at one point had a candidate that he was fairly pleased with and did even make a verbal offer to, but that candidate ultimately ended up going with a private sector job, I believe with Simplot. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what Bill told me that he went with. So it's just been a struggle. It's not just the districts and not just us that are struggling to hire engineers. It is a statewide issue. DEQ and IDWR have also had engineer positions listed repeatedly or ongoing for quite some time and have difficulty filling their positions as well.
And part of our efforts to attract somebody to the position include that we're listing it not only as an engineer, but as an engineer tech. And I forget exactly what the official names for those positions are. But in other words, we're not absolutely requiring that we have somebody that's a licensed engineer. We'll take somebody that's kind of in training, working towards becoming a licensed engineer. And even having it advertised that way, I think what Crystal spoke to there, that not only the Idaho and the Western United States, but the national building boom, and now with the infrastructure money that's coming out of the federal government and so forth, I don't see it getting any better. There's just a huge, basically there's a shortage of engineers for the jobs that are available. And you look at the construction and the infrastructure work going on here in Idaho, even currently, and it's not hard to understand that really. So that's that's just the kind of the tough situation we find ourselves in. And the Division of Human Resources is aware of it. DFM and LSO, the decision makers in the state, are aware of the challenge facing all of us agencies that have open engineering positions, and they are working with us, which is to say they're not going to wipe that position off of our rolls real soon. We're believing and counting on that. So that's where we're at, Chairman.
Well, it's also bottom line money. We are capped at what we can offer. And right at the present time, that's not enough to it seems like, to find qualified engineers.
Correct, Chairman. No doubt about that. If we had enough money, if money was no object, we'd probably have found somebody, but we'd have to be competing with the all the private enterprises up and down the road.
Okay. Do other people have questions or comments?
That lack of engineering and technical help is going to make spending the money that's coming a little more difficult, you know. Going to have all this money and no place to go with it without the engineering.
Yeah.
That's
All
for
of
sure.
them, not just with us, not just with districts.
No, it's going to be a problem. A lot of money spent, and we have to have qualified engineers. It's going to come down to, yeah. It's gonna be a problem.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
great point, Chairman and Julie, and I'll speak a little bit to some of the work that Curtis and Benjamin and I are doing to try to lay the groundwork for addressing some of that going forward in a later memo item, Julie.
Okay. Do other people have questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I promised Delwyn that I was going to be quiet, so don't let him make me talk.
Is that all you want to say now? Okay. Do other people have questions? If they do not, I'll throw this out. If you come up with something, please drop it in the chat box. We'll try and get back to it. Or for heaven's sakes, call one of us or call Delwyn and make sure your question or comment's known. We really do appreciate them. But we do have other things discussed today on today's agenda. We appreciate if you'd like to stay on. That's great, wonderful. And listen in, and we'll go from there. I'll make one more call. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add at this time?
Yeah, Norman, this is Wendy. I just want to let Julie and Joan know how much we appreciate you guys being on and lending your experience and expertise to that conversation. I hope that whoever goes in front of the legislators, Benjamin, I hope you're listening, gives those two women a call and gets some really benefit of what they have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. And with that, unless someone else has something to say, right, we're going to move on to item number 5, guidance for federal contractors and subcontractors. Is that Delwyn? You're going to talk about that, I assume?
Yes, Chairman. Chairman Wright and Commissioners, this item relates to the COVID-19 workplace safety guidelines for federal contractors. And I'll go through this just in case you haven't had a chance to review it previously. President Biden's Executive Order 14042, ensuring adequate COVID safety protocols for federal contractors, requires all federal executive departments and agencies to include a contract clause in quote unquote covered federal contracts or subcontracts requiring that covered contract employees obtain a COVID-19 vaccination, except in limited circumstances where an employee is legally entitled to an accommodation. The Safer Federal Workforce Task Force has provided COVID-19 workplace safety guidelines. for federal contractors and subcontractors, which is attached to your packet. Governor Little and the state of Idaho have joined a lawsuit filed by Georgia in federal court challenging the legality of the vaccination mandate. And by now, as I'm sure you're aware, Governor Little has actually joined 2 or 3 additional lawsuits. At the same time, the governor is also in the process of assessing legal and financial impacts of the executive order on the state of Idaho. Governor Little has directed all state agencies to assist in this assessment by reporting to the Division of Financial Management details related to any covered contracts that will be up for renewal or new contracts agencies are considering entering into. Although we do not at this time have any federal contracts, your board and staff need to be aware that Executive Order 14042 may impact our ability to enter into federal contracts in the future. On a related note, as of November 10th, the Idaho Nrcs staff have not received USDA specific guidance for how Executive Order 14042 is to be implemented. And Amy covered this as far as how they're approaching it. At this time, Conservation District and Commission staff are able to work in NRCS field offices as long as the local NRCS team leader is able to comply with the percentage of occupancy limits, which are dependent upon COVID-19 infection and positivity numbers within each county. That concludes this report, unless there are any questions related to the COVID-19 situation.
Hey, Dylan, I
Hey,
might
Dylan.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
This is Bill Bitzenberg. Hey, speaking on this, I think our office is at 50% capacity, but we haven't been able to have anybody go into the office. We have 2 in our county. There's, 4 districts counting Jerome, 3 in our county and 1 in Jerome, and we're all in the same office. But we haven't been able to have our administrative staff come in at all because of the requirement to either be vaccinated or tested. And I can't talk about why we can't have them come in because it's a personnel matter, but suffice it to say that we can't have staff in there, and we're trying to figure out how to accommodate that, and it's been really tough, and it's put a crimp in our ability to do a lot of projects and other things. And I don't know we haven't figured out a way around it that satisfies anybody. So if you had any ideas, we'd appreciate it.
Thanks for the question, Bill. And really, I hope Amy is still on and listening to that, being as it is a USDA facility at present until this gets through the courts. My understanding is that USDA has jurisdiction over that property and can require what it is they choose to require. Amy, can you speak to the situation that Bill described down there?
Well, not specifically, I guess. From what I know, Jerome, we don't have a huge presence in that facility. I know it's more FSA, so we can talk to them about the numbers, Bill. And I'm not sure how much NRCS staff we even have in there or are allotted. So that it really comes down to each office is different. First, depending on our space, and I thought we don't really have a huge separation with FSA, but we can definitely look at it. I'll reach out to Mark Olson, the area conservationist, and we can talk to those folks down there to see what we can do to try to get you one in there. But it really does come down to site specific. Each office is different with our different partners that facilitate or manage those offices, and then our presence. Some offices we have a bigger presence than others. And if I remember correctly, we don't have a huge presence in Jerome, but that may be changing or may have changed. I'll reach out to Mark myself as well.
Everybody's in Twin Falls. Jerome has been they took everything from Jerome and put it over in Twin Falls. So that's why we're all in the Twin Falls office, and Twin Falls, the county has had poor numbers, and it's just made it, well, not hard, impossible to get work done.
Gotcha. I'll speak with Mark and Steve Schuyler, the team lead over there, and see, because I'm not caught up on what their rotation has been. And with that, you know, ours continue to fluctuate. We're trying to be at 50%, but when we have spikes of COVID and when we get it brought down to us from the COVID team, we have to drop down to 25% in some offices. And we seem to have that fluctuating sometimes weekly. So we're trying to keep up on that and keep everybody up to date on that, because when that comes down and we get restricted, then we're restricted for a while before we can go bring those numbers back up. But we're continuing to see trends up and down, and hoping at some point we can even increase that more. But right now, you're right, we are restricted to that percentage. And like I said, we've had to go down to 25% in some offices for several weeks at a time. So, but I will talk to Steve and Mark about your specific request.
Well, it's not, capacity isn't so much of a problem. We can kind of, you know, work around that. It's the vaccination and testing requirement that's our stumbling block.
Yeah, Bill and Amy, actually, this is the first I'd heard that there were any field offices that were requiring a vaccine or testing. So I appreciate clarification on that and follow up, Amy, after you've spoken with Steve and Mark and whatever the situation is.
And just a quick comment on that. So that testing has been out there, but we still don't have direction on what that's going to be, Bill, even for our own staff. So we've been waiting and waiting. You know, we have to be able to there's lots of questions, even for our folks. If they have to get tested, where do they do that? When do they do that? Their time, all that stuff, which I assume also will be asked for the partners. So it's trying to figure out how that's even going to be captured. We have not received guidance on that yet. So we have not been asking folks to get tested, even the Nrcs employees, because we don't have that guidance yet. There's been talk about it and national headquarters has been developing it, but it hasn't been sent out to us yet. So that sounds like that's what's coming, but we still don't have that documentation as to what's required, for employees and also for partners.
Well, that's the rules that we were told we had to follow, and that's what we've been doing. So so I guess what I'm hearing is we can send them back in.
Probably a good idea to see what Amy finds out after Amy visits with Mark and Steve, Bill, and figure out a way forward through this. So, there any other questions or comments on the COVID issue? Hearing none, I guess we're ready to proceed, Chairman.
Okay. That was item number 5. We're complete with that. So item number 6 is reports from commissioners and staff. What reports do we have? Anybody have anything they'd like to tell us this time? Wendy? Yes. Go ahead, somebody. I didn't quite catch you.
Chairman, I'm not aware of anybody here in the office that has a special report.
Okay. When did you have anything? Eric?
No, I'm good. Thank you, though.
Okay.
No, just a couple meetings I had up here with the local board, with the boundary board, and just everybody seemed to like the progress we've been making with our relationship with ISCD. And I everybody's encouraged. Hopefully we're taking a new step and we can really start to have a united front with our legislators on getting funding cemented in for the coming years. And with the federal money that's come in for COVID, I think we have a big opportunity to get WACPA funding back on the table. And I think it would be very, very beneficial to every district in the state.
Okay, well, that leads us in then to number 7, Administrator's Report. That's up to you, Mr. Delwin, again.
Thank you, Chairman. My administrative report, I'm starting off here with a update on the state level memorandum of agreement between NRCS, each conservation district, and the Idaho Soil and Water Conservation Commission. As of November 10th, when I drafted this memo, Darvin Jarvis from NRCS had informed me that the MOAs between NRCS, ISWCC, and 42 conservation districts have been fully executed. In a nutshell, the MOAs are an expression of our common objectives to deliver technical and financial assistance to farmers, ranchers, forest stewards, and other entities to voluntarily protect, restore, and enhance the productivity of American agricultural lands. A copy of the MOA is attached so that you guys can review it at your leisure. Of the 8 conservation districts who have not yet executed the MOA, several are awaiting signatures, while 5 have chosen not to enter into the agreement. This is the latest information I had from NRCS. I'd also want to touch on our partnership building activities that I've been involved with over the last, since we last met. Regarding the partnership strategic plan development idea that we spoke about last meeting, on November 1st, Curtis Elke, Benjamin Kelly, and I met to begin discussing how to go about developing a shared strategic plan for the Idaho Conservation Partnership, NRCS, ISCD, and the Commission. We spent most of our time together considering how districts could benefit from a funding opportunity which Curtis proposed. In brief, Curtis suggested that he could provide funds which would enable districts in each of the 17 NRCS teams to hire technical and administrative staff to assist NRCS staff with Farm Bill programs. I committed to consult with the governor's office and others in order to determine the feasibility of such a program, and we agreed to meet early in December to continue our discussion, both on the proposal that Curtis introduced us to, as well as to a shared strategic plan. So Benjamin, Curtis, and I will be meeting the second week of December to continue that talk. Are there any questions or comments on that sub-item?
You discussed it more with the governor's office. I know that they are concerned about that concerning from the COVID standpoint.
Yes, and I haven't, Chairman. What we're doing when a new possibility, a new program came up, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which created a big rush on the part of all of us state agencies to look at our budget requests and to incorporate federal funds spending authority into our fiscal 2023 budget requests. So Rachel and myself, DFM and LSO have been working through getting our revision to our budget request in shape to present by tomorrow's actually the cutoff date by which time we were supposed to have that submitted, or we must have that submitted, I should say. So that kind of took, but that dovetails with Curtis's proposal, because that was one of the issues I was going to need to address with the governor's office and with DFM and LSO, was if Curtis did have those funds available, how could we acquire the spending authority in order to implement that kind of a program? And so now the IIJA rush to revise budget requests to include spending authority for federal funds came up. And so we're kind of addressing both issues with our revision to our budget request. One of the elements of Curtis's proposal was he would like to have a single contract between NRCS with us, the commission, for, and he was talking about perhaps $100,000 per each of his 17 teams, which would be 1.7 million per year to fund districts to hire this kind of help. And he wanted to contract with us rather than 17 different contracts with 17 different districts, and then we would essentially subcontract the money out. This is all just a concept at this point, and so we're roughing it out, but tickled to death that the IIJA opportunity came along and that DFM and LSO agreed to allow agencies an extended deadline, that is by tomorrow, to submit budget request revisions so that we could get that federal fund spending authority worked into our 2023 budget. So we're poised to spend any monies that Curtis might send our way.
Do you want to go ahead and finish up with your informal meeting, and then we'll be down to that IIJA or whatever it is?
You got it. I will. Yes, Chairman. Recapping some other informal meetings I had, I met with ISCD President Steve Becker and outgoing Division 5 Director Kit Tillotson, and we spent a couple of hours brainstorming ideas for moving the partnership forward. As Benjamin indicated, they had real interest in discussing the possibilities of perhaps refunding WACPA. And as we are all aware, under the constraints of the governor's office placed on our budget request for next year, we didn't have the latitude to request any funding for WACPA, but ISCD certainly does have the ability to go out and lobby for that. And like Benjamin mentioned, he's already taken up that cause with some decision makers and others here. And we're excited about seeing what we can push forward and develop, and in regards to getting WACPA refunded. I also met with ISCD Division 1 Director Bob Flagler here in Boise, and we just had a general discussion, didn't go into details or get into the tall grass about any specific idea, but we both expressed our commitment to working together and doing what we could to see that our boards are working and effectively together, functioning as partners. And I enjoyed time with Director Bob Flagler. Then on November 10th, I met with the ISCD directors at their meeting here in Boise, a face-to-face meeting. And it was a good opportunity to reconnect with the current ISCD board members, as well as to get to know Devin and Bob and Joan, the newest ISCD directors, a little bit better on a kind of a professional partnership level. And again, we've discussed a number of items related to building our capacity as partners to expand our role as leaders of voluntary conservation in Idaho. And I felt that the meeting was especially valuable as an opportunity to begin building relationships with the new ISCD directors. The final item on my administrator's report relates to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA. On November 8th, Congress presented to President Biden for his signature the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This act incorporates funding for a great many infrastructure programs. I should add, this act incorporates a great deal of funding for a great many infrastructure programs. On November 10th, the state agency directors were informed that DFM and LSO have jointly agreed to allow agencies a budget request revision deadline extension to add line items germane to their agencies around the provisions in IIJA. Agency directors were asked to review IIJA and determine if their agency has any needs for federal spending authority specific to what will be provided by the federal government in the IIJA. If we choose to request federal spending authority, DFM directed us to include the following narrative in our revised budget request, and I quote, "Under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, passed by Congress in November 2021, ongoing federal fund spending authority is requested over the next 5 years to address and describe the program that we want to address. Based on a quick layperson's review of the 1,039-page act, staff believe many of the natural resources related infrastructure projects which Idaho conservation districts engage in, including wildfire risk management, ecosystem restoration, establishment of fuel breaks in forests and other wildlands, and projects to improve watershed health may qualify for IIJA funding. Staff will complete an evaluation of our needs prior to your November 18th meeting and will be prepared with a dollar amount, which we will recommend requesting during that meeting. At this point, Chairman, I'll throw that up for discussion amongst the rest of you, or questions.
Well, what type of money are you talking about? What kind of proposal do you have?
After having further discussions with Curtis and working with Rachel on this, the 1.7 million that Curtis has verbally agreed to make available or suggested he would be in a position to make available to the commission for distribution to districts seems like a good number to ask for. And that's what I'm recommending we go to DFM with in our budget request revision, is that 1.7 million. That, from one standpoint, we look at that and think, well, that's already pigeonholed or committed under the proposal that Curtis submitted, or that we've been discussing with Curtis, for districts to hire administrative and technical assistance for the NRCS team leads out there. But Curtis and I both recognize, and he had some discussions with this with IICD leadership as well, that there's a very slim chance that 17 districts, all 17 of the NRCS teams, are going to actually see districts wanting to participate at that level, which means that the actual amount to go out to that proposal will be perhaps 10 teams, which would be $1 million. And that may even be, that's about as realistic as we came up with. So that leaves us another 700,000 for other federal funds. See, most of the IIJA funds it's stipulated in the act that those funds will be appropriated, allocated, distributed to Department of Interior, USDA, NRCS, USDA, US Forest Service, primarily seem to be the three entities that get the bulk of the money. And so monies that will become available to us or to districts from the IIJA are likely going to be funds that have been appropriated to NRCS and then distributed through agreements between us and NRCS to provide funding for programs that we or districts have or would like to initiate.
So you don't think any of this money is going to come directly to a state for us to be involved in?
The IIJA doesn't appear to me to provide much, if any, funding directly to state entities. Perhaps to Shane, Deputy Attorney General, have you had a chance to familiarize yourself with IIJA and how that may? Can you respond to Norman's question about that?
Not with the detail that you're going to want. I had a chance to skim through it, but like you said in the report, it's a really long document, and so I'm not quite sure how that's going to be distributed to states.
My question, Delwyn, you just got through telling us earlier that, they've opened this up, the state has, and said, okay, given all these agencies the opportunity to add this line item in their budget for monies. So what you're now telling me is it's going to come through federal. So why did the governor's office tell state agencies to get prepared for this when they're not going to get their hands on it? I'm a little confused here.
Well, the important thing, Chairman, is that those federal monies will not be appropriated apparently directly to the states or to the state of Idaho or to the Idaho Soil and Water Conservation Commission, but funds that are appropriated to U.S. Forest Service. And we have a lot of Forest Service land in here. It could be that the Forest Service will, as happens up north, not infrequently, where a district will partner with Forest Service to provide engineering or culvert installation on Forest Service roads and that kind of thing. So Forest Service funds could come to us, and those of course are federal funds. NRCS funds could come to us. Department of Interior, BLM funds perhaps could become available to us, and we would need some authority to spend those. Even though it wasn't a direct federal appropriation, it would be federal funds becoming available, which unless we had spending authority, we would not be able to expend. So that opportunity would be lost. Does that help?
I guess, because I was under the idea that these funds, federal funds, part of them are going to come to the states to allocate to different areas that would carry out these programs. But what you're trying to tell me now is it's all going to the federal agencies, and they may or may not divvy down to any of the state agencies.
That, Norman, that is how I understand it right now. But I think it would be worth making the distinction between, we're talking about IIJA, which just was it earlier this week that the president signed it. Contrast that with the America Rescue Plan Act, which, Benjamin, is it not the case that the state did get a bunch of funds or is going to get a bunch of ARPA funds, and there's a state work group or task force right now that's in the process of deciding how best to use which agencies, which entities, which projects and programs to best expend the ARPA funds and expend them in a way that's in compliance with ARPA, of course. Benjamin, can you elucidate, clarify any of that?
Yes, that's correct. And so it's basically what Delwyn just said is correct on the ARPA funds that have already come or been allocated to the states for them to decide on those kind of things. So that's the first pot of money. Then what Delwyn just reported on is that second pot of money that will be coming from different agencies. But then there's a whole nother chunk of this that will come to the states as well. So I mean, in that situation, it seems like it's 3 pots of money, but the one that Delwyn's directly talking about is, like he said, the spending authority side if NRCS decides to pass it through or whatever kind of grants or however they work things out. So that's another part of that is when we get to the WACPA discussion is, then the state has this big pot of money for water quality and all those water projects and stuff. And so, yeah, there's going to be funds flowing from a lot of different angles.
Chairman, I would add that second or first pot of money, the ARPA funds. I'm keeping in contact with our legislative services office budget analyst, Rob Sepich, on any progress being made on decisions on who of the state agencies are going to get how much of those funds. And Rob is actively lobbying, if you will, on our behalf to see that some of those funds get directed to the commission for implementation projects. And but as of yesterday, the last time I checked with him, there had been nothing definitive coming out of that ARPA task force to indicate that whether we have or do not have some of those funds coming to us. So that's an ongoing issue that is kind of out of our hands right now. It's up to that task force.
So the only thing that we are in the process of adding to our budget is possibly $1 million coming from NRCS, which would assist in hiring administrative personnel from the different areas, right?
That's right. What Curtis has proposed is that his teams need help. He's proposed providing $75,000 of NRCS funds per year to fund a district hire of a engineer or an engineer tech type of a person. And he indicated that didn't need to be somebody has an engineering degree even, somebody that's interested in getting job approval authority on engineering projects. So it could be somebody starting right at the bottom, but $75,000 per team for that type of a position and $25,000 per team for an administrative help. And one way that could play out would be a district that perhaps has a part-time administrative assistant right now. If that person wanted to go to be a full-time person, then they could continue to work part-time, half-time, let's say, for the district, and Curtis would fund them an additional half-time to work for the NRCS team lead in that area. So that's what as we talked earlier, the total for the 17 teams would be 1.7 million, and we would, if that were to come to fruition and all 17 teams enrolled or participated in that, we'd be looking at $1.7 million, and that is what Rachel and I are prepared, if your direction, to go to DFM with as far as our updated budget request.
So you and Rachel are thinking that we ought to request 1.7 million.
That's correct, yes.
Because you heard you said earlier $1 million, because you thought only 10 would do it, but you're thinking we ought to go for the 1.7.
I'm in favor of going for the 1.7 because even if only 7 or 10 or however many participate, I'd like to have that additional spending authority in our back pocket in case IIJA funds, federal funds come to us through IIJA, through Interior or the Forest Service or NRCS. So I'd rather have, it's a lot less work for us to get spending authority up front. And remember, we're not talking about any general fund dollars here. We're strictly talking about federal fund spending authority. And it's a lot easier to get that up front than to have to go mid-year and ask for a supplemental. Right. So we'd like to keep the request at 1.7, and we are awaiting feedback from our analysts in LSO and DFM on if they suggest or recommend, provide any other kind of guidance on. Now, we're prepared to adjust our request per their guidance, but as of right now, that's what we're looking at.
Okay. So then I've got a question for Wendy and Eric. Do you understand that what we're looking at is a $1.7 million add-on in our budget, non-state funds, but just a spending authority to acquire this project? Is that, do you understand all three of us do that?
Yes.
So kind of, and it says over the next 5 years. So is that just a one-time, or is it every year for 5 years?
That would be an appropriation, a 1.7 million appropriation ongoing. So for each of the next 5 years.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
what exactly, you said spending authority, what that would entail, the engineer part of it and the administrative part of it, Delwyn? Is that how that works out?
I'm sorry, Eric, what was that?
I said the spending authority gives us the ability to pay out that $75,000 to an engineer per one of the 17 district or teams, or is that per district? So how does that, I mean, go ahead.
that would give us the authority to, if a district hired an engineer or a technical person in a team to help with a certain team, that would enable us to spend that money. First of all, we would get it from NRCS, and then that money would be sitting in our account. And before we could spend it, we would have to have that spending authority. So then we would spend it on either the technical assistance person, his personnel costs, or
the
other
administrative
elements of whatever program we get set on.
And that would apply to the administrative part that's helping with the paperwork side of it on, say, a district admin or whatever, right?
That's right, yeah. And what Curtis
Okay.
is talking about, no, apparently it's in line with NRCS contracting agreements, is that there would be 10% or some percent. He mentioned 10%, I believe, built in there to cover our administrative costs for the hiring and the payrolling, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
just to
all
help
you're
out.
wanting from us as commissioners, just a direction to go ahead and put that 1.7 million added into the budget, correct?
That's correct. Mhm.
So we're not asking for a motion, just direction.
Did you have something, Benjamin?
Yeah, well, I was just trying to help out a little bit with the timeline as far as, and it's exactly what Delwyn relayed, but yeah, basically the spending authority is for this, whatever this program could be called. But back to when Delwyn kind of reported on, we're going to meet at the beginning of December to see how much we can make this happen or whatever. So it's you're giving the spending authority knowing that the program hasn't been set up yet, or all the logistics haven't worked out. That's when you guys would probably want to have an official vote on it. But with the governor's timeline of submitting everything by tomorrow, you would already have this spending authority to go forward if you decide to do it, and all the logistics are going to work out for you.
Okay. So I guess we're willing to give that direction towards Delwyn to add 1.7 million in for spending authority if the program shakes out.
Mr. Chair and Delwyn, there's a comment from Eileen in the chat. Eileen says, basically getting the spending authority would allow SWC to spend federal funds if they are obtained, if they obtained the funds. NRCS funds is one possibility, correct? That's what we were.
That's very well stated. Thank you for that, Eileen. Yeah, that's very well stated. Chairman?
Yeah.
Chairman, I would like to ask Shane if on this item, I had it written up as an action item and was asking commissioners to act on this 1.7 million request. Is what I'm hearing from the chairman at this point is that just providing us some direction would be adequate. And since we actually aren't considering expending any funds right at this point, I'd just like you to weigh in on that. Should commissioners act on this, or is just providing the direction perfectly adequate?
I'd certainly feel more comfortable. I mean, if this is unanimous with the commissioners here, then I would like to have that voiced, and that makes it, I think, more appropriate. Just voicing that this is the direction that the board wants to. The commission wants to go. I apologize.
Lords, I'm hearing we want a motion.
Thank you, Shane.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to move to direct staff to submit to LSO and DFM a revised FY 2023 budget request for the amount of 1.7 million ongoing federal fund spending authority over the next 5 years to address natural resource related infrastructure, wildfire management, ecosystem restoration.
I can second that.
Okay, we have motion on the floor by Eric and second by Wendy. Further question? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carried. Then, I guess, going back then to Benjamin's original discussion about Waukpa, I thought that this is where that discussion was going. But obviously now I've been corrected and it's not being that discussion. So I'd like to finish up Benjamin's earlier discussion then, because I don't see it anywhere else on the agenda. Is that not correct, Alan?
Chairman, that is correct. And I can kind of clear that up a little bit. That night that I got a hold of this, DFM sent out the IIJA information. My initial look at it, I just looked at the index of what's all in the act, and I saw, wildfire mitigation, watershed enhancement, all this kind of stuff that just looked like Waukpa kind of projects. And before I'd read enough of the act to understand that those funds weren't available directly to us, but they would be coming through federal entities such as Nrcs, I called you in a great state of excitement, thinking that we were onto, a big gravy train that would enable us to do a whole lot of implementation work. And until this agenda item came out, I haven't really informed you that it's a little bit more nuanced than all that. So yeah.
Well,
we do need to have the Waukpa discussion.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
So at this time, then we're going to finish up Benjamin's original discussion, which I thought would be occurring at that time, and discuss Waukpa. So thank you, Benjamin, for bringing that up earlier so I can be on track here. Because I wanted to come back to your discussion and, kind of talk a little bit more about it. I'm excited about it personally, but not just me at the present time. I've not heard from Eric or Wendy, but I'm excited about going after Waukpa. The only question I've got is how much. We can't ask for anything, but my gosh, how much are we going to try and get? Well, Eric, Wendy? Got any comment, Eric or Wendy?
No.
No, you're pretty well hitting the nail on the head, Mr. Chairman. How I feel.
Okay, Wendy?
Nope, I'm just ready to hear the discussion.
Okay, Benjamin, go for it, fella.
Well, I don't know. There's not a whole lot more to it at this point. And so that's where, as I mentioned, trying to get the right people at the right table here at the beginning. So like a Paul Arrington with the Idaho water users, of course, back to the discussion of where the money's coming from and how we can spend it and all those kind of things. So you have that initial big pot of money that the state government already has from ARPA funds, and one of the federal agencies already put out some guidance on how those water quality type things have to happen. But there is that pot of money, and then what you just talked about, where it's going to come through an agency, and then there's some more money coming too. So in the whole 1.5 trillion thing that was passed. So all that being said, there are going to be some dollars there. Yeah, what our board talked about was, number one, there is the part of Waukpa that is less regulatory. You still have to go through all the proper paperwork and submit the right things, and that's going to be something that the commission will have to review like they did in the past. So it's not just dollars raining from heaven and no strings attached. That being said, I had the list from our previous conversation of unmet needs from 2017 when we were trying to see if we could get $1 million per year for the program. And so I think the big thing right now is to have a good list, good updated list from districts of possible projects that could get implemented. And that's going to be our selling point to how much we can ask for that program. I talked to Delwyn yesterday. We kind of talked back and forth about that DFM language that he already covered. It would be, I think the program, there's some drop dead date when those dollars have to be spent in 2026 or maybe at the beginning of 2027. So it's basically 5 years. So what we would be asking for is, let's say we're asking what we asked for last time, $1 million for Waukpa. It would have to be language of $1 million or $5 million over 5 years. And so it will not, because it's all the federal money, even though it's coming from the state, we probably wouldn't want to ask for, let's just have $1 million for next year and keep asking for it. DFM just provided that language, and that might be a good route to get it would also allow districts and, well, you guys, if the dollars are passing through you, then it would allow the commission to be able to implement these projects over more than a fiscal year or a calendar year. And that's another part of this, is that one of the major hangups seem to be with DEQ's program is, number one, they meet once a year to approve projects, but by the time a district gets their project approved and then goes out to the partners that they're working with, and engineering and all these different kind of things that play into it, a very easy project could still take a year and a half pretty frequently. So there's the possibility of not having the constraints of only doing it within a calendar year and then having to extend it and all those kind of things.
Benjamin, I want to go back. I think I understood you correctly. And I think that if I did, that's a good way to go. You were saying back to the first part, districts have requests for unmet needs and, projects that could be funded. And I think that we did have a pretty good listing of those. Do we need to add on to that listing, Delwyn? Do we have projects that we could hand to Benjamin and said, okay, here are ones that districts have got on the burner that need funding? Do we have enough to get something started there, or do we need to go back out and ask for more information from districts?
Chairman, that's a great question, and we've already initiated that process. Loretta sent to all of our field staff 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, a kind of a template for what to ask districts. We're not going out with the formal survey again, but I'm having field staff check with all their districts and compile a list. Right now, I think we have 3 field staff that have responded, 2 including Loretta, and we've accumulated a list that amounts to something like $1.5 million worth of shovel-ready projects that districts could get going on if they had the funding. So yes, we are in the process of getting a comprehensive list to Benjamin, because as he mentioned, that's going to be really important as a selling point in the legislature.
And I think that we want to tell districts this was not something, a pipe dream. There's money that could very easily be available. And so these projects are reality more than they are just a dream. So we can get more projects to give to Benjamin.
That's right.
I think you're right on, and Mr. Chairman. And just looking at the list that from last time, I believe we had, well, they have $10,383,000 $500,000. And there's, I don't know how many projects that is, maybe 25 to 30 projects that were listed. And so I think as of now, I mean, being able to talk to the governor's office, hey, this is what we had last time. We're surveying everybody right now, and are going to get serious or be able to, you know, show some projects that are, you know, ready to be implemented. Obviously, still having to go through the steps of, you know, getting finer points on them, but this is where districts want to go.
I agree with you. And a project like Julie Burkhardt, I don't have no idea how much money she's talking about, but if you can come up with $10 million right now, and this is a period of over 5 years, I'm sure there's going to be some that'll drop off, but I'll bet you'll be a lot more added on. So all of a sudden we're talking 10 million plus in 5 years, and we're only going to ask for $1 million. I don't want to be greedy, but I don't think that's going to be realistic.
Yeah, well, and that's, once again, that's where we got to get, and that's why, you know, in asking Delwyn to be available for some meetings as well. Yeah, I think first we want to walk this through the governor's office and walk this through, or the concept through the governor's office and through somebody important like Speaker Bedke, who watches very closely on all this water, all water projects. But then, yes, we do not want to limit them or give them a number that is way too short. And so that point is very well taken. And I don't think we want to walk in saying any specific number at this point.
Nope, I don't either. I think we all have a nice long list of projects that are feasible projects, you know, that are reasonable, but we all have nice long lists that these are the ones right now that we've got that could be done if we just had the money and show them a good sized number.
Absolutely. And another thing, back to what Julie Burkhardt had mentioned and a few others on BMPs and DEQ's program, you know, I think the best case scenario here is, and something we want to shoot for, is we don't need to touch that program. Let's keep it going. But now let's implement, go after WACPA and make it a robust program that, once again, for the private landowner, for the district, it's not going to be overburdensome to get these dollars on the ground. And we want to be able to come back year after year to the legislature, say, hey, this is where those dollars went on water quality, water infrastructure, all those kind of things. And I think another part of it too is, and why we need to definitely have, you know, our Water Users Association on board, is because they're probably, between them and their work with the state water board, you know, it's very easy for those dollars, for a large amount of dollars, to go to water canal companies, basically. And we understand that. So where can we fit in and get a good bite of this apple without having to, you know, push against the Idaho Water Users Association or the Idaho State Water Board? And we want them on board with us. And once again, we can make this a larger group around the table that is, you know, looking after each other's own, or everybody's interests are involved there. So
I kind of want to make a statement here. I'm also the president of the Kootenai Valley Reclamation Association, which I represent, which represents all the drainage districts in the Kootenai Valley. And we had a meeting last week with our attorney, Norm Semenko, and he brought this up too, to talk to Paul about ARPA monies available for different projects. And we would like to try to get on board with that, with some dike repairing stuff, maintenance, whatever that entails, pump house stuff. So I want, and I'm going to be in communication with Paul, but I want to make sure that they also understand that it needs to be brought to the attention of people that not only pump the water in, but the people that pump the water out like we do up here. So.
I just wish you could pump that water a little further south, Eric.
Well, there's some years I wish I could too, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Delvin.
For a little bit of a historical perspective, the last year that we had WACPA fully funded was 2009. And that year there were 10 WACPA projects active around the state. And we prioritized them, projects totaling $2,592,000 worth of projects is what the commission committed to funding that year in 2009. So that's kind of the spending level from 12 years ago that we were running on WACPA year to year. So I think Benjamin is on the right track with holding back and getting a sense for where the legislature is at as far as funding a water quality program like this, and not jumping the gun until he has a sense for how to maximize that ask and get the most dollars available possible for district work. So,
and let's be honest about this. This would be a great step forward for all of our districts, because you start talking about water quality, water quantity, and all the other things go with it. It affects every district in the state, and they can all benefit greatly.
and Mr. Chairman, this of course leads naturally into how are we going to administer it and what kind of staffing needs are we going to have. And at your last meeting, I indicated that either the December or the January meeting, staff would have completed an assessment on staffing needs for such a program. Right now, being as everything is as up in the air as it is, we don't know if we're going to get 1 million or 7 million. So I'm going to defer that report and assessment until your January meeting and give you an update on where we're at with employee and staffing needs for that kind of a program.
That's fine.
Okay.
All depends upon how much we get. Benjamin, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was just going to add to the whole other portion of this that we haven't talked about is, where NRCS can come in as well. And Curtis has indicated in the past that yeah, if we could find a way to get the program implemented, he could come in with some matching type dollars as well. And maybe I just use that example of, the earlier example of $1 million a year over 5 years. It's a $5 million program. It might turn into a $10 million program very quickly. I don't want to be too pie in the sky, but there are going to be some serious dollars around. And I think he's reported, well, I know he reported at the October meetings, the district or division meetings, or whoever reported for him, sorry. They had increased their staffing by 28 people, and they still have a fair amount that they would plan to increase. But also, he mentioned at our board meeting that, and I don't remember the exact number, but he says we're currently at a $70 million budget for Idaho NRCS. That could almost double over the next year here, and he's waiting on that. But so there's some promise in a lot of different things right now.
I just thought of that too. NRCS acquires a lot of equipped contract proposals, many that don't get to be funded because they run out of money. That's not because they're not good projects, but just they ran out of money. There's another source possibly of dollar contracts that we might be able to acquire to help persuade legislature.
Absolutely. I think you're right on there. And another part of this whole thing, if it really gets going, is we gotta continue to push the message to districts that when you're applying for these kind of things, you need to write in as much as you can. Well, not as much as you can, but you know, go after that 10% of administrative stuff here, and you know, there is some overhead in implementing any project. And, you know, I think that's what some districts that don't have a lot of staffing and funds coming in from their county, they run into those problems of, yeah, we could do everything for the project, but we need that little portion for admin to keep our administrator in the office. So.
Yep, that's correct. Okay, so I would believe, Benjamin, our point is, let's go for as much as we can successfully handle. How's that? Okay, Delwyn, that kind of finished up. I think the next thing on our agenda was our report concerning meetings. I had one question there on that. You have a meeting on your listing there. It said January 20th. I believe that's been changed to January 18th, sir.
I believe you would be correct, Mr. Chairman.
Because we're going to coincide with the ISCD's activities there in Boise, and that way we could be a part of that, and we moved it to January 18th on that Tuesday.
We did, to coincide with their legislative display day. So thanks for catching that, Chairman. Appreciate that. You are right. January 18th, not January 20th.
Okay. And, okay. So as we move on now, where are we down to item number 8? Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, so we have information concerning our minutes for August 19th. Has the commissioners had a chance to review those minutes of August 19th? If you have, I would take a motion to approve August 19th. Ooh. It was August 19th. So it's September 16th, right?
Yeah, is it August or September?
Well, it says August
September.
on the agenda, but my minutes say September 16th.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. It is September.
Okay. No, it's really November, but that's all right.
The minutes
September
are for
16th
September.
minutes. Does everybody have an opportunity to look those over?
Yeah, I can make that motion to approve the minutes of September 16, 2021.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Wendy, a second by Eric to approve on September 16th minutes. Further question? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. Okay, now we're down to October 22nd minutes. Ever get an opportunity to look those over?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for October's 22nd meeting.
Okay,
I will second that.
okay. With that, motion on the floor by Eric, and second by Wendy, approve October 22nd, 2021 minutes. Question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, we're down to financial reports, I believe. Is that Rachel's turn?
It is my turn. Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so since we skipped a meeting last month, we have 2 months to go over for the financial reports, but first I'll go over, we made a minor budget modification. The original budget request was submitted on time on September 1st. And then the original deadline to submit revision requests was Friday, October 22nd. And based on communications with DFM and LSO after submission, we made some minor adjustments. The operating inflationary costs we included, which were $4,100 for RCRDP and $6,000 for general fund. We removed those from the budget request. But the $6,000 removed from the general fund request was reallocated to the T&B increase request. So we just took that $6,000 and bumped it over to T&B, bringing that up to $80,300. So do we have any questions on that budget modification? Being a minor adjustment, we didn't feel like we needed the board's approval unless anyone thinks otherwise, but it was basically just a $6,000 transfer. Questions? Okay, moving on to Commissioner Honorariums. We've expended approximately 51% of the honorarium allocation to be expected with all the recent travel. Any questions there? Okay, we'll move on to the September financial report. We'll go ahead and start at the top left under general fund expenditures for personnel. We're about 25% of the fiscal year completed as of the end of September, and we had expended at that point just under 19% of our appropriation for personnel and general fund, which of course reflects the vacancies and the turnover. Any questions on general fund personnel?
None.
Okay. Operating expenditures in general fund at the end of September, we had expended about 49%. Any questions there?
None.
Under trustee and benefits, as of the end of September, we'd had expended 725,000 of that. And over in the cash section on the right, we have not received any payments to date as far as cash receipts, which is typical. So any questions on general fund for the month ended September? Okay, we'll jump down to RCRDP. Personnel expenditures was approximately 22%. Operating expenditures was at approximately 15%. And cash receipts, as of the end of September for the fiscal year, we received just over $45,000 in payments. And the balance sheet loans paid out remains unchanged from August. Any questions under RCRDP? None? The DEQ loan, all these figures, other than a slight bit of interest accumulated there, are the same as they were the month ended August. Any questions on the financial report for September? We'll move forward to the summary. Okay, so for the summary for the month ended September, under general fund personnel, the amount remaining projected through the end of the fiscal year is sitting at approximately $66,000, and that's taking into account retirement payouts, etc. RCRDP, personnel fund expenditures as carried over from the financial report, we've expended about $39,000 and have a minimal expected balance remaining in that fund by the end of the fiscal year. General fund operating funds expenditures are at about $117,000, so about halfway through as of September. Professional services is unchanged. RCRDP operating fund expenditures of about $24,000 for the fiscal year so far. and the revolving loan is unchanged. And of course, the trustee and benefit expenditures are unchanged. Any questions for the month ended September? Okay, we'll jump forward to October. So for the financial report for October of 2021, at about 33% of the fiscal year completed. Personnel expenditures was at about 28% expended. Operating, you'll see a jump over last month or over September to where it's now approximately 71% of operating expended, which is very typical for this time of year because we have some large bills, our interagency bills that come out in the first part of the fiscal year. And that also does reflect that our travel for field staff has increased, so we're definitely keeping an eye on that, but we're increasing as far as service to our districts at this point. Trustee and benefits has now been 100% distributed. Any questions on general fund? All right, jump down to our CRDP. At approximately 33% of the personnel funds have been expended. Operating at about 18% of the funds expended. Cash received to date, $123,000 on the loan program. And the loans paid out remains unchanged from last month. Any questions on our CRDP? Okay. And jumping down to the DEQ loan. This amount remains unchanged from last month other than interest accrued. One of those payments that we did receive for our CRDP was a DEQ payment that we did go ahead and pay down part of our balance with DEQ, and you'll see that on the November statements next month. Any questions on the October financial report?
I've got one.
Okay.
Of course, our personnel is at 27.64 compared to 33% a year. Question I've got is other than our engineering position, how many other positions do we have unfilled?
As of right now, it's the engineering position and the WQRC, correct?
And technically the CREP.
And the CREP manager position right now.
So we have 3 positions unfilled.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, we can jump forward to the financial summary through the end of October. Under general fund, personnel funds, the remaining projected balance as of the end of the fiscal year has now been adjusted to just under $65,000. Our CRDP loan administration expenditures through October for personnel is about $58,000. General fund operating funds expended thus far is about $167,000. Professional services is unchanged. Our CRDP loan administration expenditure is about $24,000, and the revolving loan is unchanged. And of course, the trustee and benefits just reflect that all those funds have been distributed. Any questions at all on the financial reports or financial summaries for September or October? All right, if there are no questions, I recommend that the board approve the financial reports for the month ended September 30th, 2021, and the financial reports for the month ended October 31st, 2021.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial reports for September.
Okay, a motion on the floor for September 30th financial, second by
Sorry, Wendy will give the second.
Okay, thank you. Further question? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. October 31st.
I'll move to approve the financial reports for October 31st, 2021.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion by Wendy, a second by Eric to approve our financial reports for October 31st. Further question? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. I do have a follow-up question that was not addressed. It was addressed in financial a bit, but to Delwyn, what's the status on the other two open positions? We talked a lot about the engineering, but we kind of glazed over the other two.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we've got going, we have the engineer position, which we've talked about, which is open. We have an open water quality resource con position, which is the position that was vacated by Loretta there here in Division 3 out of the Emmett area. And we have a plan for filling that. We are going to try to have, what our intent is to have somebody hired in order to start early in the new calendar year. And the reason for that is that when Loretta was appointed to become the deputy administrator and vacated that position, it was the tail end of field work and of project proposal work and technical assistance needed by those districts. So we said, let's leave that open for a couple of months while we collect ourselves around the plans, the other things we have going forward, and have that person on board early in the new calendar year. The third position is actually the CREP manager position, and technically that is not vacant yet. That is filled by Chuck Pencer, who is burning vacation time until November 26th. The earliest we can have anybody, we can replace him is November 29th, Monday the 29th. Although we can't fill his position while it is still occupied by him, and Rob, of course, is serving as the acting while Chuck is on vacation, we can announce that position and be advertising for it. So next week, Monday, that announcement's gonna go live, and we're gonna begin accepting applications for that so that we can hire somebody, get the interview process done, and have somebody hired by, what I'm shooting for is the middle of December to have the new CREP manager on board.
Okay.
So that's the status of those positions, Mr.
You'll
Chairman.
probably go out and start advertising Loretta's job about mid-December.
Actually, we're going to advertise that, mid-December, early December. We're going to advertise it for.
I'm actually hoping to have it listed with the engineer position and have the listing closed by mid-December so that we can hopefully do interviews before the end of the calendar year.
Very good. Thanks for that.
Maybe I should ask Crystal this question instead of you, Delwyn.
Well,
Mr. Chair, in Delwyn's defense, he has delegated the management of NeoGov and our listing of our vacant positions. He has delegated that to be one of my responsibilities. Because Rachel and I deal with DHR a little bit more on a daily basis. And I'm on a first name basis with the NeoGov representative through DHR.
Bottom line is he wanted to get the job done. Thank you, Crystal.
It's like Julie said earlier in the meeting, Mr. Chairman. And by the way, I appreciate Crystal covering for me there. Thank you, Crystal.
We all know, in case of doubt, we talked to Crystal.
Isn't that the truth?
Okay, I believe that finished up that section. We're down to the omnibus rule. Oh my gosh, does this ever go away?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Unless you want Crystal to take this one, I'll lead you through. She says no. Okay, the omnibus rule of the State Soil and Water Conservation Commission. At the June 10th meeting, your board approved adoption of the temporary rule, IDAPA 600501, rules of the Idaho State Soil and Water Conservation Commission. The proposed temporary rule was subsequently published in the October 20th, 2021 Idaho Administrative Special Edition Bulletin, and the proposed temporary rule is attached for to remind you, if you'd like to review that. The proposed rulemaking comment period closed November 10th. We received no written or oral comments regarding our proposed rule. And I can add that after drafting this memo, I received word from LSO that the Senate and House subcommittees for review of administrative rules had reviewed our proposed rule and would not be filing any objections. So at this point, staff recommend you move to adopt as a pending rule the proposed temporary rule, which was published in October, and direct staff to submit a notice of omnibus rulemaking adoption of pending rule form to DFM no later than November 24th per DFM's direction. And the completed notice is attached. On December 22nd, 2021, DFM intends to release another special edition of the Idaho Administrative Bulletin to publish pending omnibus rules. After our pending rule publishes in December, this is just to give you a peek into what the future holds for this rulemaking process. DFM will prepare the legislative rules review books and submit them to the 2022 legislature. We will then need to present our rule docket in front of the germane legislative committee for both the House and the Senate. After that, we wait and see what the legislature does. If no action is taken on our rule, it will become final upon adjournment of the 2022 legislative session.
Okay.
That concludes this report, unless there are questions, which I'm happy to stand for, Mr. Chairman.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, I just have a comment. I'm just sick and tired of having to, this is like Groundhog's Day every year.
Well, you got that right. Hey, okay, you know, we had reports back up here, commissioners and staff only. And I just remembered we did not hear from Joe Peterson. The main reason I wanted to hear from Joe Peterson was, how's his dad doing on his trip? He hasn't reported.
Mr. Chairman, I just talked to him yesterday, actually. And he is in Guatemala right now, moving his way down Central America, and is planning to cross over into Colombia. It'll be about the end of December. But right now, he's in Guatemala and will probably head to Honduras within the next couple of days. So he's moving around a lot.
Joe, go back, and there's some people that probably are online that aren't, excuse me, aren't aware of his trip. Why don't you give what he's up to?
Yeah, my dad left the beginning of October with plans to take his motorcycle around the world. And if everything works out, he would go from Boise to the tip of South America, ship over to Africa, go up Africa into Europe, and then head east over Asia. So that's the plan, but we'll see what happens.
And he was going to report to you of any interesting conservation measures along the way, right?
That's right. None that I can report on yet, but he is watching and looking.
I expect pictures.
I will. I'll see what I can do.
Tell him if he's going to be part of my commission meeting, we need pictures.
I'll let him know. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I believe that finishes us up down to the executive session. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, we had an action, a recommended action regarding the omnibus rule.
Oh, John, I was trying to get rid of that thing.
Not so easy.
Okay. I guess we need a motion, commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt as pending ADAPA 60.605.01 rules of the State Soil and Water Conservation Commission as published in the October 2021 Idaho Administrative Special Edition Bulletin, and direct staff to submit a notice of omnibus rulemaking adoption of pending rule form to DFM no later than November 24th, 2021.
Thank you.
I will second that.
Thank you, Wendy. We have a motion by Mr. Olson, a second by Ms. Pratt to approve the omnibus rule. Further question? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we promise this goes away.
Ugh.
I'm
Okay,
not making that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Shane, it's your job to make that go away.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you bet.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, Delvin.
Mr. Chairman, before we go on to the executive session, I know that Carla from Kootenai-Shoshone joined us late after the listening session, and I just wanted to, in case she missed your invitation, to invite Carla to make any kind of a statement, ask any kind of a question, if you would like, Carla, as part of our listening session this meeting.
Go ahead, Carla, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, thank you. I'm Carla Freeman. I am the district admin with Kootenai-Shoshone Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm not sure how much of the listening session I missed signing on late. I guess I got the times mixed up with the time change, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but Carla, what the chairman had done was just opened it up for interested parties to ask questions of us. If you have some burning issue you would like to bring to our attention or for us to address, or comments or suggestions, that kind of thing.
Okay, great. Well, right now I don't have anything, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, Carla, for joining us. And I'm glad that you chimed in there. And with that, we appreciate your interest, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, with that, then we're down to probably executive session.
So I'll make that motion to enter executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061D for the purpose of discussing a loan.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor by Ms. Pratt to go into executive session and a second by Mr. Olson. Roll call vote.
Chairman Norman Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Kathy Romer, who's absent, Commissioner Eric Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wendy Pratt,
Yes.
Okay. On executive session, discuss a loan. We'll be coming out and making a motion one way or the other on that, and to wrap up and adjourn our meeting. So thank you for all that attended, and we'll see you next time.
Crystal, text me the Zoom stuff. I don't have
we
it.
are actually not. I'm going to do like we did last meeting for the special meeting, and we will put anybody not involved in the executive session back into the waiting room. If they choose to be back, to just sit in the waiting room, and I'll let them back in when we're done.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Modern technology at work.
It's wonderful.
So it'll take
When
me
it
just
works.
a few moments to do that.
Thank you all. Oh, Cassie also. Wonder who that is.
She said she doesn't want to talk, but she's acknowledging you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I wonder how.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we're back.
Okay, welcome all of you that stuck around, and we're back in the regular session. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve loan application A-748.
I will second that.
Okay, a motion on the floor by Mr. Olson, second by Wendy. I will assume, Mr. Olson, by your motion that the recommendations that were made by the loan officer, conditions would be appropriate.
Yes.
Okay. Any other further question? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. Okay, Mr. Hobelheinrich, go to work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. I believe that concludes all of our business. Is that not correct, Mr. Delwin?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with that, thank you for all that stuck around, and we'll see you next time.
Chairman.
Thank
We
you.
are adjourned.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you much.